Hello viewers, and welcome to another entry in the LOTR LCG progression series by Cardboard of the Rings, the bi-weekly podcast about the Lord of the Rings the card game, which is a living card game by Fantasy Flight Games. As always, this is Mitch, and joining me is Matthew.
Howdy.
And today we're going to be taking a look at the sixth and final adventure pack of the Shadows of Mirkwood cycle, Return to Mirkwood. So Matthew, why don't you go ahead and catch us up on our narrative?
Gandalf the Grey suspects that the wretched creature known as Gollum holds the key to thwarting the Dark Lord of Mordor. After cornering and capturing Gollum in the Dead Marshes, the heroes must now escort Gollum north through the Mirkwood forest so that he can be held and interrogated at King Thranduil's palace. With the information he might gain from the interrogation, Gandalf is hoping to piece together the truth of the One Ring's fate in order to keep it out of the Dark Lord's clutches. The journey's not going to be easy, however. Mirkwood is always a dangerous place. The Dark Lord's forces are eager to take Gollum for their own purposes, and Gollum himself is eager to escape. Our heroes must return to Mirkwood in time to gain the information needed to thwart the Dark Lord's threat.
Alright, so this is a fairly straightforward scenario. The goal here is going to be keeping this Gollum objective card alive until we make it through all 4 quest phases of this scenario. It's not going to be a simple matter for us players, however, because this 5 hit point creature objective requires that any damage from undefended attacks have to be dealt to Gollum. If at any point Gollum is destroyed or the player guarding him is eliminated from the game, whether it's from threat reaching 50 or having all of his heroes eliminated from play, then the players have lost the game, and he has this horrible forced effect where at the end of each round, raise the threat of the player guarding Gollum by 3. Then, that player may choose a new player to guard Gollum. So I think we're going to go ahead and begin the game with Matthew here taking care of our wonderful objective. And with that said, why don't you go ahead and introduce us to the new enemy that we have to look forward to in this encounter deck?
Sure, not only do we have the return to Mirkwood, we have the return of the Hill Troll and Ungoliant Spawn, and then this nasty new enemy, Addercop, with engagement cost of 44, 2 threat, 8 attack strength, 4 defense strength, and 6 hit points. And the forced effect reads, at the beginning of the encounter phase, Addercop automatically engages the player guarding Gollum, which at this point would be me, regardless of his threat.
But with that said, we have to contend with a host of new treachery cards that are meant to specifically illustrate this theme of bringing Gollum against his will back to the Elven King's halls. Specifically, we have Gollum's Bite, that when revealed deals 4 damage to a hero controlled by the player guarding Gollum, and also Gollum's Anguish, which when revealed raises the threat of the player guarding Gollum by 8. Both of these force that player to pick a different player to guard Gollum, and both of them also have nasty shadow effects. But with that said, why don't we go ahead and take a look at the decks that Matthew and I are going to be playing today. So Matthew and I are both shaking things up considerably for this quest, as in this adventure pack we got the stellar dwarf hero Dane Ironfoot. So in this adventure I'm going to be playing with Dane, so he's going to be globally enhancing any dwarf heroes and allies in play. I've got a host of very powerful high willpower characters, a lot of card draw effects, some threat mitigation effects, cancellation of shadow cards, cancellation of when revealed, some defensive bonuses like Dunedain Warning and Dunedain Signal to try and slap on Dane Ironfoot, and some staples like Steward of Gondor and Unexpected Courage that you've come to expect by now.
I'm running the trusty Gimli as one of my heroes, but I'm doing 2 different heroes than I normally do. One is Thalin, who I believe this is his first appearance in our progression series, and I'm also returning to Berefor, who I've used a time or 2 in the past. I have a ton of allies in this deck, a whopping 29. There are so many nasty creatures. We don't want undefended attacks, so I want to make sure that every attack that we have to deal with is being defended. So I included a wide variety here. Sort of some typical events, Feint, Quick Strike, speaking of my allies once again, there's quite a good mix of eagles and dwarves. So the dwarves, of course, are all going to be pumped up by Dane Ironfoot. The eagles, though, hopefully we'll be able to get some of them on the table in addition to support of the eagles to pump up our heroes even more.
So hopefully our very first foray into dwarf decks in this series is going to work out all right, but with that said, we've already got our starting threat set. Mine is going to be 27, Matthew's is a little bit alarming 30, the Hill Troll threshold, so why don't we go ahead and draw our opening hands, being sure to shuffle our decks. I'll go ahead and draw 6. So for an opening hand, it looks like I got something absolutely fantastic. So I'm going to go ahead and keep this. And how about you, Matthew?
Yeah, I think my hand's decent enough to hold on to.
All right, so since we've both passed on our option to take a mulligan, why don't we go ahead and take a look at our very first quest phase of this 4-phase affair. The setup is we have to search the encounter deck for Gollum and pick a player to guard him, which of course is going to be Matthew. So he has Gollum placed in front of him, and we're going to go ahead and shuffle the encounter deck and reveal 1 card per player added to the staging area. So let's go ahead and shuffle that now. And the very first card of the game is going to be a Wasted Provision. So, when revealed, discard the top 10 cards from the deck of the player guarding Gollum. That player must choose a new player to guard Gollum if able. So, go ahead and discard 10 cards.
Ugh. Card number 1, Dog of the Noondell. Card number 2, Eagles of the Misty Mountains. Card number 3, another Eagles of the Misty Mountains. Card number 4, Support of the Eagles. 5, Rivendell Minstrel. 6, A Feint. Ugh. 7, Support of the Eagles. 8, all of the Eagles of the Misty Mountains are now gone. 9, Citadel Plate. 10, Horn of Gondor. And then you get to have Gollum.
Alright, so it sounds like a ton of tactics cards, really. So plenty of lore left for your 1 lore resource here. So Wasted Provisions is now done. Card number 2 is going to be a Hill Troll. Alright, so it looks like we're going to have this wonderful guy to deal with the very first turn of the game. So probably not the most heartening start, but with that said, why don't we go ahead and go to our very first planning phase. So I will do 1 resource. I'll go ahead and draw a card. Should I be the first player?
Sure.
Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and make myself the first player. This Hill Troll looks absolutely horrid trying to deal with this. I guess I've got a couple different options here. You don't... Well, I guess, do you have any convenient answers to this in your hand?
I've got 2 vassals of the Windlord, but that's, even with their attack power, it's not enough.
Okay. Well,
I could Bearvor myself to maybe get something else, but...
I guess what's tricky about what I drew is I just so happened to draw an attachment that could give Gimli an additional action. I've also got a cancel shadow effect, so if this Hill Troll is, attacks Gimli, if he blocks, you could ready him, have him swing back, but if he gets any sort of nasty shadow effect, then he's basically dead meat.
Right, I forgot Dane Ironfoot's global boost, so I would have just enough attack strength with the allies that I can play to kill the Hill Troll first turn, but I would need to defend with Gimli.
Yeah, I guess the shame here is it's probably going to end up riding on whether or not we get a terrible shadow card. So the game might end awfully quickly, but I guess we'll have to see how it goes. So why don't I go ahead and strip 2 spirit resources for Unexpected Courage on Gimli.
Okay.
With that said, that's all I'm going to be doing. So why don't you go ahead and take your turn?
I can play 2 vassals of the Windlord.
Okay.
And that is all I can do.
Okay. And depending on how this goes, I could do some resource acceleration for either you or myself next turn. I guess we'll just have to see if this Hill Troll goes great or if it turns into a nightmare.
Okay.
But with that said, why don't we go ahead and do our questing? I suppose I'll commit 6, and I don't think you're probably going to send anything.
I'll send Fallon.
Alright, so that should hopefully leave you plenty of characters to deal with this hill troll, unless we get a nasty shadow effect. Let's see what we get for staging. Card number 1, please don't be a hill troll, is a Caught in a Web. So the player with the highest threat level attaches this to one of his heroes. So this is going to be you. I know you've got miners in that deck. I can't cancel this effect because all of my spirit resources are gone. Which of your characters do you want to stick this to?
Barivore.
Alright. So, you're sure you want to pick Barivore? I guess Gimli's got the built-in readying.
Oh, I guess that's true. Yeah, we'll do Gimli.
Okay.
I don't know what I was thinking.
And I guess he's going to be taking so much damage, you might as well just load him up with just miserable stuff.
Right.
But card number 2 is... Oh, a Wolf Rider, which of course surges. So it's going to surge to a Spider's Ring. So I'm very glad that this was not, say, Addercop. This is going to be a total of 3, 4, 5 threat against us. We had a total of 8 committed to the quest, thanks to Dane. So that means we're going to end up making 3 progress on our current quest. I assume you don't want to discard a card?
Well, before we... I was going to say, don't forget Fallon's damage on the Wolf Rider.
Oh, that's right. So the Wolf Rider enters play with 1 damage.
Nope, I don't think I will be discarding anything.
All right, so we've at least survived through staging. For travel, we've got the Spider's Ring as our only option. And this reads, while it's the active location, the player guarding Golem cannot change, but it's 3 threat, it's only 2 progress tokens to get rid of it. I'm fine to stomach a little bit of threat gain, so shall we go ahead and travel here?
Sure.
Alright, so let's go ahead and move to the Spider's Ring, and let's go ahead and deal with the encounter phase. So you're going to have the Hill Troll come down and attack you. This Wolf Rider I could just defend against with Dane. Gimli, if he defends against the Hill Troll, is going to end up taking 4 damage. He'll be able to swing back for a total of 6. Your Vassal of the Windlords can make it a total of 12, which is going to be sufficient to kill the Hill Troll.
Yep.
So I suppose I can just indefinitely block Wolf Rider.
Yep.
Until I get an ally to deal with them. But let's go ahead and pull him to me, pull Hill Troll to you, and go ahead and distribute some shadow cards. So here's hoping for the best. I'm going to have Dane block against the Wolf Rider. There is no shadow card. Wish we would see that for the Hill Troll. Dane takes no damage. Now the moment of truth. Gimli defends against Hill Troll. Shadow card is... raise defending player's threat by 4. So, that is certainly better than a dead Gimli. So Gimli is going to end up taking 4 damage.
Yep.
Alright, so, attacks. I can't do anything. What are you going to do?
Swing with the team.
Alright, so that's going to be a total of 12, which is going to be enough to bring our Hill Troll to 0 hit points, and he is going to be added to our victory display.
Sadly, my Wing Lords go away.
Right, but I am very glad to see that we pulled through this terrible first turn.
Right.
So, before refresh, do you want to do anything with Barivore?
Yep. The question is who? Are you needing cards?
So here's the thing, is I've got a resource acceleration attachment in my hand. I've got quite a bit of good stuff in my hand, but you're a little bit damaged. So do you have any good tactics and lore things that we can expect from your side of the table?
Nope.
Okay. Why don't you go ahead and have yourself draw those cards? Because I think we're probably going to rely on you more.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay.
I like what I drew.
All right, good. Hopefully You can cheer up a little bit after drawing that. So shall we do our refresh?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so refresh, boost your threat by 1. Golem's forced effect here is going to trigger, so I've got to raise my threat by an additional 3. And then I may choose another player to guard Golem. I think at the present moment I'm going to go ahead and hold on to him myself, since your threat is already a little bit up there. So,
yeah.
All right, let me draw my card. Do my resources. Your first player.
All right, and the card I drew I wish I would have had it last turn. But the first thing I'm going to play is a Miner of the Iron Hills.
Excellent. So
this is one of the cards I drew with Bearivore.
Great.
So
goodbye, Caught in a Web.
Yep. And then I'm going to play my final Vassal of the Windlord.
Okay.
And that is all I can do.
All right. So with that said, I think I'm going to go ahead and strip 2 resources off of Dane Ironfoot, and I'm going to go ahead and play Steward of Gondor, and this is a really tricky call. I feel like there aren't a lot of damage effects in this. I think I'm going to go ahead and play this on Frodo. I'll go ahead and trigger it to do 2 resources, and I'm going to go ahead and put into play a West Road Traveler. So we're going to be able to do an additional bit of questing each turn.
Okay.
Something to keep in mind is before we get to Quest Phase 2B, we're going to want to switch the player guarding Golem to you. So I'm going to go ahead and tank it for a little while, and then I'll try and get rid of it once we have to deal with this. So.
All right. During the action window, I'm also just going to ready Gimli, just to have it ready.
Sounds good to me. So why don't we go ahead and do questing?
Mm-hmm.
And you're up first.
Oh, well, Fallon for 2.
Okay.
I could send the Miner for 1.
You certainly could.
But I wonder if I'm going to need a blocker of any sort.
So you're going to be up against a massive 0. If we pull an Addercop, that's going to come play with me. I could certainly... Right. Well, I guess I can't do it undefended.
No,
it would kill
Gollum.
Dane.
Yeah. Well, it would all undefended go to Gollum, so Addercop would kill Gollum.
Right, if I did it undefended. I might as well keep back 1 ally, unless you don't happen to have a feint in your hand.
Oh, yes, I do. So, then I will send the Miner for 1.
All right, so that makes me a little bit more comfortable to go ahead and send the West Road Traveler and Éowyn and Frodo for a total of 8, and you bring it to a total of 11. Mm-hmm. So let's go ahead and pull a couple of cards. So card number 1 is... Alright, a Mirkwood Bats, and what's great about this guy is Thalin's ability is going to activate, and per the FAQ, it's actually going to resolve before Surge. So Mirkwood Bats does absolutely nothing. And what's terrible about this is it would, of course, engage a player this turn, and it would have automatically killed, my West Road Traveler, and just generally been a nightmare. So Mirkwood Bats does nothing. Second card is another Hill Troll. So this is a little bit of a problem. It's going to come down and engage with one of us. You certainly could feint it. Gimli is going to be able to swing for, 7 if I have Gollum take an undefended attack, which is scary, but it might not be the end of the world. Gollum would do 6 or 7. Bearivore would make that 8 or 9, and the Windlord...
Well, he gets a damage from Thalin.
Oh, that's right.
And so that is enough.
Right,
that's
so
exactly enough.
Gimli would be 6, Bearivore would be 8, Windlord would be 11. Great, so I can have Dane defend.
Yep.
Perfect. So we're going to be up against 1. We're going to make 10 progress. So the first 2 are going to be absorbed by the Spider's Ring, and that means we're going to end up putting a total of 8 progress on Through the Forest. And since we have an action window in between staging and quest resolution, do you have a card that you could conveniently discard? Any junk in your hand?
Well, I have 2 of him, so I'll get rid of the Erebor Hammersmith.
Alright, well, and that would certainly boost our willpower by 1, which is going to be just enough that we can push past through the forest here, which means we're going to move on to quest phase 2B, so the player guarding Golem cannot commit characters to this quest unless he's the only player in the game. If at any point we quest unsuccessfully, Golem escapes and the players have lost the game. Nice. Something scary about this is it's very short, and as soon as we pass on to quest phase 3B, the player guarding Golem, which whether you or me cannot play any cards from his hand. So hopefully, since we'll have gotten through 2 of our hill trolls, and there are 44 cards left in the encounter deck for those adder cops to hide in, hopefully we're not going to be pulling anything too nasty. I guess Ungoliant Spawn is gone as well, so hopefully this is going to be as bad as Return to Mirkwood is going to be.
Right.
But with that said, nothing to travel to for engagement. Would you like the hill troll, as I put it in front of you, no matter what you say? Alright, so combat. Shadow card to the hill troll, shadow card to Wolf Rider.
Faint.
Alright, so faint. Hill troll, not going to be doing anything. My Wolf Rider is going to be attacking me. My question is, do I want to do this undefended, or do I want to block it with Dane?
Well, it would put 2 damage on Golem.
Yeah, I guess there's no reason to take stupid risks. Why don't I just block with Dane? So, Wolf Rider's shadow card is nothing. Dane takes no damage. Wolf Rider shall live. How do you want to deal with Hill Troll?
Well, let's see. Gimli swings for 6.
Alright.
Bearvor makes it 8.
Okay.
Winglord makes it 11.
Alright, so that is going to be a total of 8 damage. Alright, and that is going to be enough to kill it. So it is also going to be added to our victory display for a total of 8 victory points already. Its shadow card would have been nothing.
Let's see that go. I wish my Horn of Gondor was in play, because there goes my other vassal, the Windlord.
Yeah, no kidding. Or if you'd have had one of those 3 equals to the Misty Mountains you've gotten rid of.
Yep.
But that brings us to refresh. So during refresh here, we've first got to boost our threat by 1. At this point, that forced effect is going to trigger, where I have to boost my threat by 3. And because we're on quest phase 2B, where the player guarding Golem can't commit characters to the quest, I'm going to go ahead and pass control of Golem to you.
Well, I will miss Thalin's ability, so let's hope for no bats.
Yeah, let's hope this is over quickly. So resources, I'll draw my card, and I'm very able to contend with shadow effects at this point.
I happened to draw the card I was just lamenting that I didn't have.
Alright. Well, I think I want to play a lot of stuff now, just in case you throw Golem to me next turn. So why don't I go ahead... Or, well, sorry, you're first player, so...
I can't do a whole lot, so all I'm going to do is put a Horn of Gondor on Bearvor. Actually, I'm going to take the resource off Gimli.
Alright. Just a couple turns too late, unfortunately.
Yep.
But I'll go ahead and peel a couple of resources off of Frodo, and I'll put an escort from Aedoros from play. So hopefully this is going to allow us during that third quest phase to power through that, player guarding Golem cannot play cards. And I'm also going to go ahead and pay 1 leadership resource for a Campfire Tales. So why don't we both go ahead and draw a card?
Okay.
And in retrospect, I probably should have played that, while you were still doing your planning.
That's okay.
But I ended up getting a very powerful card if we happen to draw some sort of Istari. I guess since you can't commit characters to the quest, I would certainly benefit from that card draw a little bit later this turn. But why don't we go ahead and do our questing? And it looks like this time it's going to be all me. So I'm going to go ahead and send Westroad Traveler, Frodo, and Éowyn for a total of 8. Which should hopefully work out okay. And why don't we do our staging? So card number 1 is a Wargs. Card number 2 is remove 4 progress tokens from the current quest card. If there are fewer than 4 progress tokens on the quest, remove all progress tokens from that quest. I feel as though this should say, if it doesn't do anything, it should surge, but of course, Shadows of Mirkwood is a more innocent time than we're used to, and it does
Yeah,
not.
we've gotten pretty lucky with that one. We tend to get it right as we move to a new quest set.
Yeah, it's generally a pretty wimpy effect. But be that as it may, we have made 6 quest progress, which means we are able to pass through quest phase 2B, and we have not lost the game, fortunately. But now that we're on quest phase 3B, you are unable to play any cards from your hand.
Yep.
But Wargs is going to engage with one of us. Would you like to optionally engage this crew?
Yeah, absolutely.
I
Too bad he
appreciate
doesn't
that.
get the damage from Fallon, that sort of thing. It's not that I can't take care of him, but...
And the crappy thing about this guy is he does do that thing where he returns to the staging area, so let's go ahead and do some shadow cards, starting with the first player. How do you want to deal with the attack of Wargs?
That's a good question.
And keep in mind, I've got a plethora of cancellation effects.
Okay, because I was worried about defending with Gimli.
Well,
no, I can't, because he'd still get
right,
damage.
yeah.
So I have to do Iron of the Iron Hill, or Minor of the Iron Hills.
Alright. I guess no interest in blocking with a hero. Your minor, you might want to save it for an Addercop, I guess.
Oh, that's true. I mean, 3, I guess. Well, neither one of them is ideal. You wanted the card draw, so I guess I'll do that.
Sure. And what's nice about this is you're never going to have to worry about too many, nasty treachery cards and everything else. But its shadow card is, if this attack is undefended, return any current active location to the staging area. Of course, this does not do anything, but it did have an effect, technically, so the Wargs remains engaged with you. I am going to go ahead and have this Wolf Rider get blocked by Dane Ironfoot, and its shadow card is one of our copies of Addercop. So there are only 2 left in this 38-card deck. I'll get rid of those. And how do you want to deal with Wargs?
Gimli will kill them.
Alright, so Gimli absolutely thrashes it. It is destroyed.
Then I'll go ahead during the action window, and Bearvor will draw you some cards.
Great, thank you very much. I ended up getting some decent stuff, I suppose. Nothing stellar, but it's alright. Wolf Rider, of course, nothing I can do for him. And shall we go ahead and refresh?
So I have to raise my threat by 4, eh?
Right, a total of 4. And then you can go ahead and pass control of Gollum to me. And if you wouldn't mind making me first player as well.
Okay.
Alright, so let's do our resources. I'll draw myself a card. And at this point, I cannot play any cards. Hopefully we're not going to get anything too terrible for staging. I guess in retrospect, it may not have been the best idea for me to be the player guarding Gollum, but your threat is so high, it really worries me. But hopefully we'll just blow through this quest phase.
I'm going to play Gandalf.
I am Gandalf, and Gandalf means me.
And I'm going to lower my threat by 5.
Alright, glad to see that. In retrospect, I'm thinking it was probably definitely an error that Gollum came to me, just because at as soon as this ambush quest phase happens, if we blow through quest phase 3 this turn, all the enemies in play are going to be engaging me, so probably not the best idea, but hopefully it's not going to be the end of the world, and Addercops can certainly change targets. But be that as it may, anything else from you this turn?
Nope, that is it for me. I'm out of resources.
Okay, well then let's go ahead and quest. So I'm going to go ahead and send... I'm definitely going to send the escort for 4, and we're going to need 7 progress. I'll send Eowyn, also for 4. I'll send the West Road Traveler, so I've got a total of 10 cents so far. I'm wondering if I should leave Frodo open, just in case there's some sort of nasty enemy. I guess so long as we... Well, I guess I'm not too concerned. You could send a total of well, a lot if you choose to. I think I'm just going to go ahead and send what I've said. So I'm going to send these 10.
All right, I'll send Thalon for 2.
Okay, so we're at 12.
And then I'll send Gandalf for 4.
Okay. So that is going to make a grand total of 14. If we need to, we can ditch cards to Eowyn. I think this is probably going to end up being okay. Let's go ahead and do our staging. So card number 1 is a Wood Elf Path. So, really not a big deal, and the travel effect is actually going to be beneficial. So, if we happen to get some sort of nasty enemy in between reaching Quest 4 and our actual combat phase, I can switch control of Gollum to you. But, second staging card is a Mountains of Mirkwood, so another pretty wimpy location. But as we sent a total of 16, we're going to end up making 13 progress, which is more than enough to pass this quest phase. So why don't I go ahead and put those progress tokens on, and it seems like we are speeding through this in record time, considering what we've been up against. That brings us to Quest Phase 4B, which, at the beginning of the combat phase, all enemies in play engage the player guarding Gollum. Players cannot defeat the stage if there are any enemies in play, but if they defeat the stage, they have won the game. So with that said, why don't we go ahead and travel? I guess Wood Elf Path is probably a decent option.
Sure.
Alright, so let's go ahead and travel to Wood Elf Path. Your threat is actually lower than mine at this point, so I'll go ahead and toss Gollum over to you.
Which means the Wolf Rider comes over to me,
right?
Correct?
So now that we hit engagement, there's no engagements to be done, and at the beginning of combat, this Wolf Rider is going to come on over to you. So let me give him a shadow card. And what do you want to do about Wolf Rider?
And are you able to cancel any sort of shadow effect?
At this point, I can play cards, yes.
I will have Gimli defend.
Risky!
Is it?
Shadow card is nothing. And if there would have been a shadow effect, I would not have canceled it just to spite you.
You like to have my heroes die. So then I will ready Gimli with Unexpected Courage, and then kill the Wolf Rider.
Alright, so the Wolf Rider is going to be killed. Do you want to do anything with Bearivore at the end of the round?
Would you like the cards?
Let's see. I guess we're going to be blowing through the quest phase next turn. The only problem is enemies might come into play and we just have to kill them. You might be better suited to do that than myself. I do have a sneak attack, but the odds of me drawing Gandalf are probably pretty poor. So do you want to... Well, I've got threat dropping effects, so maybe me, I guess?
Okay, go ahead.
Alright, so thank you very much.
And Escort from Aedoras and Gandalf are going to go away, both of which trigger the Horn of Gondor.
Right, so Escort should have left during quest phase, but 2 resources for Bearivore. Great. So, shall we refresh? Alright, so refresh, boost your threat by 4, and I suppose you want to hold on to Gollum just to make sure all the enemies engage with you.
Yeah.
So I'll go ahead and make you first player now. I'll draw my 1 card, I'll do my resources, and what are you going to do for planning?
I'm going to play a Gondorian Spearman in case I have to defend anything.
Okay.
And then I'm going to play an Erebor Hammersmith. I could play another lore ally that costs 3, but I just don't really think it's worth it at this point.
Okay, well...
And I can return... Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, any one of those attachments you want to snag?
Yeah.
I guess the topmost.
Which I think is a stupid Horn of Gondor.
Oh, well, not doing you too much good.
It is, but that can be Eowyn fodder if we need.
Alright.
Okay.
Well, I suppose for my planning, I'm sitting here on 12 spirit resources. Why don't I do something just for fun? I'll go ahead and spend 8 of those resources.
Well, would you like Bearivore card draw to maybe help you out a little bit first?
You know, that sounds like a pretty good idea, so why don't I go ahead and put those resources back on there real quick. I'll draw a couple cards. It really wasn't anything too spectacular.
Oh, boo.
I'll go ahead and pay 1 leadership resource, however, for a Campfire Tales. So, I'll draw 1 card, you do the same, And hey, I got something worth playing, so why don't I go ahead and strip 3 resources from Frodo, and I will play the Galadrim's Greeting on you. So drop your threat by 6, please. And let's see, I've got 1 cancel when revealed, I've got a couple cancel shadow effects, so instead of playing the double Northern Tracker, I suppose I'll just settle for 1. And I will also play an Escort from Aedoras, just for fun. And I think that's going to be it for me.
Okay, so I will send Thalon, of course. I'll send the Hammersmith. And I think that's
so
all I'm going to do.
All we've got to do is make 2 progress.
Oh, right.
Well, and
yeah,
I guess...
I'm going to leave these allies open just in case we get... I'll leave the Miner open and Gondor and Spearman open just to defend in case I need to.
Sure, and we do have this Wood Elf path here, but I should be able to just tear up our staging area.
And of course we know I've got Horn of Gondor to discard for Eowyn.
I'm going to go ahead and send a lot. I will send a total of 4, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Northern Tracker's going to put 1 resource on our Mountains of Mirkwood. It looks like you're going to make that 13...
And you know what? I'll just go ahead and discard the card, because we know I don't need it.
Okay, so we're going to be at a total of 18, looking to make 5. So odds are in our favor so far, and let's see what we get for staging, keeping in mind that if there are any enemies in the game, we cannot win yet. Card number 1 is a Wasted Provisions. So discard top 10 cards of your deck, sir. Well, actually, this is going to require us to pick a new player to guard Gollum. I'm just going to go ahead and cancel this, because I don't want our game delayed, and I don't want to tarnish our pretty decent score. So that is going to be canceled, and Test of Will is gone. Card number 2 is going to be the Brownlands. So it looks like we're up against 7, and we are going to make a total of 11 progress on our quest phase, 8 of which is going to go on the quest, 3 of which is going to go on our active location. So at this point, there are no enemies in play. We've gotten 8 out of our 2 required progress tokens, and we have won the game. So, Matthew, any final thoughts about our little foray into Return to Mirkwood?
Well, this is a quest I think I've only played once before, and that happened to be with you way back in the day, and I think we lost. So, certainly nice that our second go-through is a win. God, getting those 2 hill trolls was just atrocious, but I managed to survive. I was super nervous with Gimli only having 1 hit point left. Losing those 10 cards was just painful. I felt strapped for resources, but I was able to do, a decent amount of stuff. Luckily, I had those cheap Vassals of the Windlord to play. Gollum doesn't have a single point of damage on him. So many interesting things, I think, in this quest. It almost feels like it was over before it began, so I'm not sure if I had fun or not, but I was just so nervous the whole time. But I think I did have fun.
Yeah, I think overall we had an extremely shaky start with that hill troll coming off the deck, and then as soon as we dispatched that, it was another hill troll. I definitely think that we saw, firsthand, our first use of Vassal of the Windlord was just fantastic. Thalon played his role perfectly in killing that bat, saving some of our allies. Horn of Gondor definitely came out late, but we were definitely able to just tear through this scenario in no time flat. So overall, I think this couldn't have gotten too much more difficult. Of course, Ungoliant Spawn and Addercops on the first turn could have made it much, much worse, but it was pretty nasty starting off, and I think we did a pretty decent job of, pushing through. So before we bring this video to a close, any overall thoughts of all the scenarios of the Shadows of Mirkwood cycle?
Well, as I've said a few times, it's absolutely been just fantastic to play through all of these old quests. It's been so long since I've played them. We've said a few times in our player card reviews that it's been a long time since we've looked at some of the cards from this cycle, and I felt like, in many ways, I was looking at them anew, right? I sort of have my favorite spheres, and I stick to them, so a lot of the leadership or the lore or spirit cards, certainly, I forgot they even existed. So I think overall there's a lot of really solid quests. Nazgul Bell, Conflict of the Carrick are still, I think, maybe my two favorite of the cycle. But this one was certainly fun, and it definitely posed some threat to the player. So I think the game is off to a good start, and I'm looking forward to the next cycle.
Yeah, I think it was a great experience playing back through all these different scenarios. I think the encounter decks are certainly a lot less refined and a lot less consistent than what we see nowadays, but overall it was a great experience, revisiting each and every player card, using a lot of heroes that I really just haven't taken the opportunity to use before. Something I've touched on in our videos in the Cardboard of the Rings podcast is, back in the day, I was always one of those one deck to rule them all players, but this has been a really great experience to do a lot more deck building than I'm used to. I've looked at a lot of these different cards in a much different light than I did back in the day when this game came out, something like a year and a half, 2 years ago. So I think it was a great experience, and I'm very much looking forward to playing through our new print-on-demand special Gen Con release scenario up next, the Massing at Osgiliath, and after that taking a look at our first deluxe expansion, Khazad-dûm.
Right, and I suppose that we won't be away from the core set too long, because pretty soon those Nightmare decks will come out, and we get to revisit them yet again.
Alright, well that about covers it. So as always, thank you guys so much for checking out this video and the rest of the series. Be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel if you have not done so already. There's tons more content to come in the Dwaro Delph and beyond, so we'll see you next time.